Hello, this is Yvonne from Highland Realty. I've been interviewing various female business owners, and today we have Sandra Smith from Guild Mortgage. Sandra's been in the mortgage industry for over a decade. She was raised in Brooklyn, New York. She went to Colgate College where she received her BA, and then she moved to California to attend graduate school at Mills College, where she obtained her master's degree. And she decided to make the Bay Area her home. Lucky us. Sandra specializes in residential lending. She helps people with purchase and refinancing for 1 to 4 units. She currently works at Guild Mortgage, LLC, where she's been there for over 9 years. She stayed with Guild Mortgage because they believe in providing programs that work for all people within the community. There's hardly anyone that that have approached her that she has not been able to assist. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sandra. Good morning, Sandra. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks so much for even inviting me to have this interview with you, Yvonne.
Well, sure.
Happy Women's Month.
Yes, yes. And we work so hard as women, not that men don't, but, we don't have the same network as men. We're slowly but surely getting there, but we don't have that same network. So I wanted to reach out to you to talk about the lending industry so that anyone who's thinking about picking up a second career or they just graduated and don't know what they want to do, that maybe this might be the answer. So I really appreciate you taking out time from your busy day. The first thing I wanted to ask you that was along that same line with women networking was this a difficult career move for you? Do you find it hard for women in the lending industry?
When you say difficult, I really don't like to use that word because it has negative connotations. I would use the word competitive. I have always been the type of person that is competitive. I played sports in schools, and I find this business, this industry, to be extremely competitive. As a woman, when I first started, there were women who do what I do, but not as many as our male counterparts. And so I would say to you that it might appear as a woman that it's not a field that you would think about, but I challenge you to look into it if you have interest, because it is very fulfilling.
What education requirements are for a mortgage lender?
Well, you have to be licensed. It's called the NMLS license. And you basically take courses to prepare for the license, and then it's a long exam. I think you know a little bit about that, don't you, Yvonne?
Yes. I took the exam in September, and my mind is still going back and forth. That took every brain cell I had to pass that exam. I have taken the exam for law school, real estate, insurance. That exam was so hard. I almost gave up in the middle of the exam, and then I was shocked when I passed on the first try.
I get it. I get it.
It's no joke. What made you select going into mortgages of all things? Because your background, your education isn't tied to mortgages. What happened?
Well, to be honest with you, I had a different business and it was doing well, but it was an at-will type of business. And so I decided that I was going to move my focus. And I remember when I purchased my first condo, kind of that whole process and looking around, and no one looked like me, be it female, be it of color. And I just felt like, wow, this is something that I've always been interested in real estate. I didn't know exactly which niche I wanted to focus in, but I love problem solving, and anything again that's challenging, I'm kind of a magnet towards. And so I realized that lending was way more interesting than being a realtor like yourself. I don't know that I could do that. But so I said, hey, I want to be that niche for people who feel like they can't buy a home, that it's something that's completely inattainable to them, and let them know that you too can do this.
I believe that because you have helped people that wouldn't have become homeowners without that drive that you have. And I commend you for that. Is there any room for advancement once you become what's called a mortgage lender? What do you do with that? Or are you just a loan agent?
Okay, that's an interesting question. It really depends on kind of how you're placed within this. I, for example, work for Guild Mortgage, as you previously mentioned, and I'm a loan officer. And so we are kind of at the top sphere, meaning we bring in the business to Guild Mortgage, and then operations carries out the rest of the file. Now, yes, I can answer there is room for advancement. If you're that type of person that wants to be closing several millions of dollars a month, then the first step would be to build a team. So that way you're able to delegate different parts of that journey, because there are so many moving parts when you buy a home. You think that it's just me, the loan officer, and I take an application and bang, it kind of goes through. But no, I have to deal with the buyer's agent, the seller's agent, the escrow company. I have to deal with underwriters, funders, closers, processors. So there's just so much that I do during the day. And if you have a team, you're able to delegate that. Now, if you really wanted to take on even a little more, you could be what's called a branch manager, which then means that you have several loan officers under you that you're there to help motivate and problem solve some of their issues, so that you could then be a manager to them.
I see. So there is room for advancement. It just all depends on you and your personality and the niche. What would
Correct.
you say startup fees would be? You know, most of the time when you go into business for yourself, you've got to have money. It takes money to make money, kind of thing. What would you say the startup fees would be? And would you need to have what they call reserves?
Okay. So that's a two-part question, because you can look at, if you're just focused on obtaining the license, what those fees are. And I would tell you that that part of the journey, if you had a couple of thousand put aside, you're more than ready to go. I took my licensing over a decade ago. So you actually would be better to answer that question, but there's the fees for the materials for learning. Some people decide to go to a school to get that education and then take the test. Other people are more self-motivated, and so they buy the materials and do the learning by themselves and then take the fees. On top of that, you have to get fingerprinted, and you have to get a
Mhm.
report and a couple of other things that are absolutely mandatory for the licensing. Aside from that, I always tell people, as you discussed with the whole reserves and startup, you're starting into a venture where you only get paid once the loan closes. And so, unless you work for a bank or a credit union, that might be slightly different pay, but you have to look at whether or not you have someone else in your home who's able to bring revenue so that they could help the household. But if you're living alone, then you have to look at the fact that you should have a reserve of somewhere from 6 months to a year of being able to pay your bills prior to going into this. Because when you go into this, it's more than 100% of your energy. It's like 300% of your time and energy that you're having to place to build a business. And Yvonne, you of all people know how difficult that is.
Yes, ma'am, I do. Would these fees be so large that you would need an investor to help you or venture capital? You know, that's the new buzzword within women in business is venture capital. Would you need an investor to help you, or could you do it on a smaller scale where, like you said, it would just call for, you know, a few months savings?
Well, again, when you think of venture capital, that brings in other layers of responsibility. And because of the securities and intricacies of what we do as a financial advisor, if those
Mhm.
people aren't licensed, there could bring up some red flags that could cause problems. So I would tell you it's better to look into private investments, meaning talk to family, maybe have some family say, hey, look, I'm going into this and I know I might need to move out of, if you're renting an apartment, and move in with some family members to lower your monthly expenses so that that stress isn't there for you. Uh, but as far as kind of looking for a SBC loan or something like that, unless you are determining that you want to be uh, actual, I'm opening up a shop and I'm going to do mortgages myself, which in this climate is extremely difficult. I would say you really do need to think long and hard about the decision, but I would encourage you to do it. I love what I do.
Okay. Well, you know, Sandra, as usual, you've been a wealth of information. I was just wondering, did you want to explain the term bionic lender or bionic loan officer before we go? I like that title.
What Yvonne is alluding to is, if you've ever seen me on my Facebook, or a lot of times I use the tagline in my emails, AKA the Bionic Lender. Uh, a little over a year and a half ago, I completed uh, the medical correction. I had been playing basketball for many years in high school and college, grad school, and I wound up needing 2 knee replacements. And so it really took about 3 years out of my regular business, even though I was still working throughout the time. It was a long journey. There were times prior to getting the knee replacements where I would see uh, stairwell and go, oh God, I have to get up that. So I promised that once I was back and I felt like, wow, I have new knees, that I was going to be better, faster, stronger. And so now that that's the case, I tagged myself as the bionic lender. I really know that I'm ready to just go back out there and do what's necessary.
Take on the world like you know do. That's a great story, Sandra. Can you tell us how we could reach you, whether we need you for a lender or just to reach out and get some more information on how to become one?
Perfect. My cell phone number is 510-301-0198. You could also send me an email. That would be to sandras@guildmortgage.net. That's SANDRAS@GUILDMORTGAGE.net. And then also, you could also reach me on my website. That's www.guildmortgage.com/Sandra Smith.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day. And I'd like for all of you to remember that at Highland Realty, it's not just a house, it's your legacy. Thank you.